Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. And look who's back in the building, our main man, Stephen Big Beat. Or, Steve, glad to see you back after all that hurricane weather down there. How are you doing this Monday?
I'm good, Howard. Look, nothing's going to stop the Quasar Markets train. We are pushing forward. Look, I get it. It was a massive hurricane. I stuck around through it. No massive damage to the home, thankfully. But more importantly, people are resilient here in Florida. It was interesting. One of the things that I was very proud of in the state was we went from about 8,000 linemen coming down to Florida to over 50,000 linemen around the country came down here to help. Look, it was the worst in over 100 years. Is the worst in the century, and had not hit Tampa area. So very impressed by that. And what was interesting was as I was driving, and I actually went to my parents' house too. They live in Ocala. That the businesses, right, things were moving, and watching the economy growing at the same time was very interesting. So when I see the market pushing up like this, I get it. One of the things that I noticed I did not see, well, maybe they blew away, was all the yard signs for politics, right? The world's gotten better a little bit. I think, look, I get it that there's a lot of people out there that are very nervous about the markets and where we're at, but guess what happened on Friday? An all-time high, right?
Yeah, again. S&P has set 30 all-time highs this year. 30. That's amazing to me. And you're right. Resiliency is the word of the day, I think, out there for everything. I think getting through the Jewish holidays without another, uprising there
Yeah.
was a big deal. A lot of people were taking positions off on Friday because of that. Scott Bauer and the Prosper team, I know, and some of the other folks we were talking to, Jeremy Vreeland and some of them, because of that. While you were gone, I got to ask, were you surprised by the little bit hotter than expected CPI and PPI? And does that change anything in your view?
I will say that I know that one thing for me, inflation is going to go up, is groceries, because I lost all my groceries. So everybody down here is buying groceries. I can tell you that when a whole state like this needs to throw out their refrigerator and freezer, when a whole state needs to replace roofing, when a whole state, you're going to see a little bit of a push here. And in the midst of all that, you saw people buying generators at an all-time high. You saw people preparing, buying water and things of that nature. So there was quite a bit of buying in that aspect. So I'm looking forward to the new CPI numbers when they break it apart. And for me, it's going to be the beige book. I want to see the beige book in detail, because I want to know, is it was just an anomaly from the storms, because we didn't just have Milton, we had Helene too as well, and a few other storms. It wasn't just that; there was a lot of storms. Did that add to the buying and the inflation? Maybe. I will tell you that, and I don't like talking about too much about politics here, but I am seeing a switch and change. It looked like Kamala Harris was a runaway, and now is tightening up as expected in every election. Is tightening up, and I think that's why you're seeing some buying going in. I think from the business perspective. Look, I didn't see that many MAGA hats and Trump hats and that running around. I didn't see any Kamala Harris yard signs. I'm not seeing all that we normally see in an election year like this. So I think people are still on edge, and that makes me nervous too. When I'm nervous, look, the market may push higher, but I said this a couple weeks ago. I am expecting a rug pull, a big one, Howard, and one that comes quickly and swiftly and harsh. One that comes out of the blue, and I don't know when it is. I'm not good at predicting time, but I'm pretty damn good at predicting what's going to happen. So I think that we're looking at. You said CPI, you said PPI, but I'm looking at jobs numbers. I'm thinking that with the holiday season approaching quickly now, at this point, we're already mid-October, November, December. We're now 2 months away from even the big holidays of Hanukkah and Christmas. That buying is going to be really, really strong here in the next month. So if that continues, yeah, I think we continue to push. But you didn't see that from FedEx, and you're not seeing more people getting hired. Same as last year. Amazon said, yeah, we're going to hire for holidays, but same as last year. There's not this big number, and I think that to me has bothered me. The markets are pushing up on hope and luck, and not on real numbers. So that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and we know, again, we talked last week while you were gone. Steve Flanagan and I, we talked a lot about
Mhm.
JP Morgan going into earnings, over exceeded earnings, but that more importantly would be listen to what Jamie Dimon says. The guy has a good pulse on what's going on.
Yes.
He does. And Warren Buffett. And what did we see? Both of them are still raising money. And Jamie Dimon made it clear. And they both are, and Warren hasn't talked much, but he's talking with his actions. Because I saw a good article I'm going to bring up to you a little later about Bank of America and how we might be able to call the top there because he sold at the same price last time. So he obviously has a price target in his mind. It's not necessarily, hey, the world is falling. This is when I sell my Bank of America stock. It makes sense. Same thing, Jamie Dimon saying, stock prices might be inflated right now. He'd rather hold cash. JP Morgan's holding a lot of cash on hand too. So again, if you've got guys like that making those statements, you're making that sort of statement. And I will tell everybody that doesn't know, because we've only been on here. You and I have done this type of thing for a long time together, so I
Yeah.
know when you sort of your mood and your tenor of things. When Steve
I've been
gives,
in cash. I think people we keep asking, like I have my core positions that I'll never sell. That's what I do, and I add to those positions as I make money. But I don't. I'm in cash. A lot of my margin and my trading is all in cash. I have been on the least amount of margin that I have been, and I can't even remember COVID probably.
yeah. So
Um,
that's what I was about to say. Is last time Steve brought this up, it was after the run up once COVID crashed, and then we went back up, and things got a little too inflated, a little too hot, a little too quick, and you warned us all, hey guys. You might want to have some cash on hand. I don't know what's coming. I don't know what that rug pull is. I don't know what date that rug pull is coming, but I'm going to have cash on hand to be ready. So I will tell our viewers, you want to pay attention to stuff like that. Steve, like he said, he's
yeah,
not going to tell you the date it happens. And what you'll usually see is I'll needle him for the next 2 weeks because it won't happen today. And I'll needle him that
I'm
he's
okay
missing
with
as
that.
things go up. And he says, listen, I'm happy to do that. And sure enough, when we get that 10, 15 point reversal on stuff and he's buying up, that's when he's happy. I do want to say this week's economic reports. We got import prices coming out on Wednesday. Manufacturing Empire, not a huge one, but I know you tend to look at manufacturing numbers more than me. So we have that on Tuesday. Thursday, we do have initialist jobless claims. We'll be looking at that. Again, I do think a lot of the bad numbers last week were related to Helene. You lost the state of, what people don't realize is besides Florida, how bad North Carolina and places that
Very
don't
bad.
normally, and that they were shut off from the world. So there was no one working in
Still,
those areas.
still,
Still not, right.
yeah.
Um, we got retail sales on Thursday. Home builders, I always am watching that one. And housing starts on Friday, another big one for me. All the Fed talkers are making their rounds this week. It's amazing how quickly they can jump off that ship, huh? Now all of a sudden, we know Bowman was the only one who didn't vote for the 50 basis point hike. But now all of a sudden, when it doesn't look like maybe they did too much too quickly, now all the others saying, "Well, I had reservations." It's funny how none of that showed up when we saw the minutes last week. So I thought that's interesting. We do have our man Stephen Flanagan in this today at 10 o'clock. Going to talk to him. He's been nailing China lately, saying how you can't trust the bureaucrats there. They'll talk big about stimulus, move the market, and then all of a sudden, the stimulus doesn't necessarily follow. We see that with the Shanghai composite and BABA and all those getting hit today. So not surprising there. Steve, I mentioned to you I wanted to ask you. Seen a lot of articles talking value, value, value. I've been talking the value stocks versus the tech. We've been talking it here for a few weeks. Am I getting set up for a rug pull on myself here? Because I feel like everybody all of a sudden saying the same thing, and I get nervous when I'm on the side with everybody. I tend to be a contrarian, as you know.
When a store has a sale, people can't wait to rush out to buy that sale. And when things are very, very expensive, people are like, "Oh, I don't want to pay for that because it's too high." The stock market is the only place where people like look at things that are too high, go, "Oh, I can't wait to buy even higher."
Yeah.
They can't wait. Patience is a virtue here. And when we were talking about value stocks 2 months ago, it was definitely on my radar as I was buying those value stocks. No, I don't like buying things on a high. I know that price is king. I get all that. But when things are this high, I don't like it. I don't like when there's this much greed in the market. I don't like it when it's this high. It bothers me because quite frankly, I think I can get a better deal just waiting a little bit. You have to stick with the themes. I mean, the themes haven't changed. It's still AI. I saw the other day someone was railing on Nvidia that Nvidia's the stock price is too crazy. We're not even through AI yet. Look at the prices of AI, and you just heard Jensen Wong talk about AI. That our chipsets are selling like crazy. Stock's $135 a share, right? If you multiply that when you go back to the pre-stock split, oh my goodness. Look, this is exactly what's going on. Value stocks are doing okay, but I think that it's still a stock picker's market. It's not just pick any value stock out there. You need to find stocks that really are undervalued and find a thesis, a reason why you're buying it, not just to buy it because it's a value stock. Look, for me, Home Depot right now.
Yeah.
I mean, about how many things people are going to be going to Home Depot to get roofing and shingles and wood for their trusses, and it's they need a new hammer. It's going to be crazy for that side of it. Think about it from the perspective of Kroger's and Albertsons and all of those things. Groceries are being replenished at Publix right now. I can tell you right now, Publix is going to be very busy for me the next couple of days. Costco's numbers are way up. We talked about it with their new things with platinum and gold. They've found ways to make money, to make extra money, and they're taking advantage of that. Right. That's what I'm looking for. If you look for value stocks, there they are. Costco's and Sam's Club, Walmart. Look at WMT right now. Look, I think these are companies that are going to do very, very well. They're value stocks. They have a thesis. There's a reason why people and they're growing. Right. The line to get gas at Sam's Club the other day was, still probably all the way back to my house. That's when they're making money, and that's when there's a value company, a thesis, and they're looking to expand. That to me is always the key to any business. Are they moving the needle when it comes to making money?
I got two things to say with that. Number one is earnings reports might be that stimulus that gets those value stocks really moving. Also, in that we saw July 10th through 30th, which was the last big sort of exactly what we're about to hit. Value stocks IWM did rally 9.4% over that time. So again, that's the only thing that has me still feeling the way I was. That I'm looking at those value stocks.
Yeah,
I'll
but
throw
China
another one
stock.
out at you. One of your favorites is that many people don't think about. MLM would be something that I'd be looking at again after it, right? Martin Marietta, after seeing.
So yeah, Martin Marietta has a couple things. One of my favorite stocks. If you look at it from a value perspective, that thing's run from low 500s to 544 now. If you pull up
Put
a
it on my
daily,
watch list for us today because
if you pull up Martin Marietta and you look at them from a perspective of a over time since 2024. So if you look at the beginning, like maybe March-ish time, March 6th, I think it was, there's been some selling here. If you look back all the way back, if you go all the way back to where COVID was going on, that to me tells you everything about Martin Marietta, MLM. If you don't know what Martin Marietta does, they have a lot, but they build roads. That's their big thing. And I don't want to get too deep into it, but Martin Marietta usually does well during election cycle because that's when they're building the roads, right? That's one thing. They've also got heavy building materials, so meaning that big companies use them to make warehouses and things of that nature. Yeah, I can tell you that a lot of warehouses got beaten up over the last here in Florida, especially in Florida. And when you're building, you need concrete, and Martin Marietta makes concrete and mixed concrete, asphalt. It's a big company.
Yeah. And if you
And it
look
has
at this chart, it looks like an upside down head and shoulders to me, pretty much on this daily, right?
Yeah, I would also say that it's abiding by the rules of trading, which I like. When it comes to near regression as well, and I think that upside here is a little capped though to me. How much money will they make during the rebuild, shall we say, of Florida? Probably a lot,
I think it's
but
North Carolina what's going to stir it.
but
I mean, they lost all their major highways.
I should say hurricanes, yeah, in general.
So
Um,
that's more my play on it was really looking at already, you know, I know that the roads that I normally take to go to North Carolina are closed through 2025 because they fell into the river. I mean, I don't mean to laugh when I say that. So I think that we're going to see that. That was one I was definitely looking at a little bit. Steve, as we look around the world, did you see that France got downgraded here by Fitch? They are looking at a debt ratio of about a 118 and a half of gross domestic product. That's not a good look, is it?
So let me talk about debt ratio, and I understand why Fitch did it. Debt. If I look at debt ratio of countries, I'm going to pull them up so that everybody kind of understands what list of countries by debt. Government debt as a percentage of GDP. If I put this, if you do it by, there you go. Some of the worst offenders, shall we say, is Sudan. But what if I told you it was Japan? What if I told you 254.6% of the general government debt? Japan's got a bigger problem than France. What if I told you Greece was even worse? What if I
You knew
told you,
Greece. I didn't know
yeah,
Japan. I would have got that. Greece is in
what if I
terrible
told you
shape.
that the 20th worst offender is the United
United
States of
States.
America? Right. What if I told you that there were Maldives and Cape Verde and Bahrain and Italy were before France? I think that when you look at it from the perspective of Fitch, they should probably look at those countries first before they look at it. Now, what's the difference? Well, France can't produce more euro without the rest of the Europeans actually approving that, right? The United States can. We can keep printing money, and that percentage can keep going higher where we're okay. But it's not good for the rest of the world, right? So I don't know. I think France getting hit dinged that hard makes it harder on their bond markets. It makes it harder on their stock market, and I'm not a big fan of that too much. Fitch should tell us other reasons than just percentage GDP of their government debt.
Yeah, and they did frame it around that fact that they have to be at a 3% limit by 2029 per the EU, and that was now in risk. So they
That's
didn't
true.
give any
Yeah.
answers to what to do. They just were sort of telling us why, you know, what the problem was there. As we're about 15 minutes away from open here, we are seeing QQQ now up almost a little over half a point. SPY up about zero point 0.3. Bitcoin had a nice weekend. Hasn't been able to stay above 65. Did break it briefly. Got above also. I had been pointing out last week the the upper trend. Whoops.
And I think a lot of that with crypto and currencies, and I'm looking, obviously I won't be around for Steve Flanagan, but I will say this much: ask him about the U.S. dollar. The Dixie 103 right now, 25. 2 weeks ago the dollar was not strong. I think political implications are happening right now. People are investing in a stronger dollar, thinking that Trump may win. That's why you're probably seeing crypto up too. He's saying he's going to be a strong crypto president. Those things right there. That's a run. That's a serious run over
Yeah,
the last
Steve
week.
projects it's gonna challenge this 104,580 here if it
Woo.
breaks
Oh,
through this
oh, wow.
103,550 that we were looking at him and I.
All right, I'm about to go overseas, so hey, I'll keep going, dollar. But I that's also harsh on U.S. because we don't want protectionist. I don't know. To me, when the dollar's this high right now, like 104, 105 area, that makes it harder for them to buy our products, and we
Right.
need to have cheap. Because our labor is more expensive than other country labor, so that makes it a lot harder for us to sell our products internationally. So this starts to squeeze margins for companies. So I would be very careful.
Yep. Steve, what are you looking at in the earnings this week? This is earnings week. I got it up here for us.
I can tell you right now, I can see all those. I can see all those different logos up there, and there are quite a few. There are a lot of banks and a lot of, in this case, credit banks with like Discover Card and Visa and Citibank. But for me, I think the big one you got to look at on Friday is Netflix. Um, you know,
Thursday after close.
Sorry, Thursday after close. So I think that for me, are people still spending their $20 a month for Netflix for no ads, and are they doing all those things? how much Netflix was being watched over in Florida and in
Yeah,
North
option traders
Carolina.
right now have that at about a 7.4% move either way when you look at the implied volatility on that stock, which is actually less than it's done the last few earnings. Netflix is the one that's really been explosive on earnings one way or the other, so
Yep.
do keep that in mind. I agree with you. You know, financial services all over the place. You've got Citi, Bank of
Equifax.
America, PNC, Discover. Equifax is a tricky, not a tricky one, but a sort of
I mean, if you look
speculative.
at Equifax, you got to think about it from the perspective of how many credit reports were being pulled for homes. Are people buying homes? Are they buying cars? And Equifax is that company that does that. PPG, obviously. If you're going to move things around the country, CSX. And then if you look at the Dow theory in general, Dow theory is asking you about FedEx, and then of course CSX, and the railroads are what has been moving things around the country lately. So that's a big one. I also would think that travelers would be another one for insurance, insurance on homes, insurance that might have been getting dinged here during the hurricane. So those are things that I
Yep.
would definitely be looking at.
We have Delta, American Airlines both on also.
United, yeah.
Excuse me, Delta was last week. United and American this week. Definitely ones to keep an eye on. Those of us watching chips, you got TSMC on Thursday. Also, that will be a big one following AMD's. You weren't here, did you? Do you have any thoughts? I don't know if you were able to really look into what AMD had to say. They
No,
released their version of the Blackwell. Said sales look good there.
yeah,
Their biggest thing is what you've been saying is that pie is a huge pie and they're going to get their piece of it. AMD is
correct.
trying to play itself off as the second answer to
The problem with
Nvidia.
AMD and NVIDIA with AI chipsets is that the AI world think of it like the beginning of how the internet, how many modems did we need at the beginning of the internet? Everyone needed a modem, right? Every machine needed a modem. So back then it was modem world, right? It was Qualcomm and those chipsets back then, Intel, obviously, right? Today it's the same thing. There are so many chips needed for AI that Nvidia, which by far leads the number of sales in that black. I've been talking about Blackwell for how long now,
Oh yeah.
but AMD, their own chipsets, they're going to need this. Right, there's just the need is so great. Um, but for me, it's not just about the chipsets and AI. It's also all the ecosystems around it too that you're going to need. Phones are going to need to be AI chipsets as well. Qualcomm isn't going to be able to handle it anymore. You're going to need NVIDIA chipset in your cell phone. What? No, yeah, you're going to. Eventually, the machine's going to need much better video. If you look at your video, it's probably like if you got like myself, I always got to have the highest quality video in my phone. It's not going to be able to handle it. Qualcomm's not going to be able to go. Oh, I can't wait to. No, it's going to be a new chipset in your cell phone. How many mobile phones? A new chipset for NVIDIA is going to be in your Oculus, your Apple Vision Pro. They're not going to be able to handle it. The M4 is not going to be able to handle high quality video in your wearable. That's a whole other level of
Sure.
need, and it's going to be there. So here we are. We got about 7 minutes going into the open. I'll tell you one thing that I am looking at, and you just mentioned it, United Airlines. I want to hear from them. They've opened up some new routes, some international routes that are very interesting to me. So I want to hear from their CEO saying, "Hey, we are not just looking at upgrading our planes to the maxes, but we're also looking at upgrading where we're going to go." And guess what else I saw over the weekend? Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean talked about they're no longer just going to handle the Caribbean. They're going to actually go to Africa
Really?
from Spain. That was one of the new routes they're talking about. I agree. Look, this is what I'm talking about. If you want to look at value stocks, you want to look at quality companies, but obviously RCL being best in class in the cruise line industry. How are they expanding? What are they doing to make it better? They can only buy bigger ships and better ships. Got that. But now you got to figure out ways to make more money and margins. And guess what? All of us that cruise, we want to go different places. So they have done that. They're opening up. They're saying more world cruises, more bigger, longer cruises. Those make money for them. When you look at it from the perspective of margins, Apple not getting the margins anymore, right? What are they doing to increase their margins? Not much. That's why you're seeing Apple. When the money comes out of Apple, and there's a lot of money in Apple, there's a lot of money in Bank of America. Where's it going? It's going to cash first, and then you're going to see the value stocks. That's what I'm talking about when I say you need to have a thesis. Why are you buying these other companies? And then you need to be able to say, Steve, Well, the reason I'm buying X is because of XYZ. This is the reason I'm doing it because I think that they're going to increase their margins. They've got better roots. They got this. They got a better quality product, or there's a need for an AI. That's when I think I like the value stocks, not just because they're value stocks.
Yep. Yep. You got to choose the right ones. You want best in class across there. Oil down a little bit. So WTI actually fell below that 75 handle it had been holding for the last week or so. So it looks like tension is there in the Middle East might be loosening a little bit, making that feel better. Also, I think the stimulus or lack thereof in China, the way that's not really, you know, planning out the way it looked like about a week ago, has that moving down a little bit here.
I took my profit in China stocks when it went sky high. I was like, "This is enough of this. Thank you very much and goodbye." I'll tell you why, because I don't believe anything in China. I mean, I just they talk a great game, and then when it comes down to brass tacks, they're not doing it. Now, there is something very interesting there. They are lowering the tax rate for people that are in China that want to buy more homes. They're allowing you to buy more than one home again, and they're allowing these big banks and companies to be able to invest in more products and in more in this case real estate. And that to me is a game changer. More than Xi Jinping infusing stimulus money into the system is changing the philosophy and westernizing, shall we say, the feelings of the East. Because quite frankly, if you allow international companies to come in and invest in China, like we have allowed China to come and invest in our country, you're going to see a lot. You're going to see a big movement. That's
Yeah.
when I like things, but not right now.
Makes sense across the board there. We are about 4 minutes out. I do have to point out a couple of the pre-market pumpers here to keep an eye on. TVGN, which is T-Vogan, one of those pumpers we've seen do it a few times. Did pump in the pre-market hours and still holding up here. So definitely at play. We picked a few of these up. It's staying on top of the VWAP here in the 3-minute. That's what we're keeping an eye on. It bounced off it already once. If we get a nice bounce off of that VWAP again, you got move here. Usually what we see is a repeat of what we saw at 4 or 6 a.m., depending on when the market's open for these. The other one, JTAI, we rode this up for a huge winner on Thursday and Friday last week. I still have all of those marks in there. We hit this one twice, 2 days in a row for 25% winners. Actually 35 on Thursday. So JTAI back in play here. You can see same formation. So keep an eye on this. If it comes down, especially if it reapproaches that 0.1168, that VWAP, this one is one that bounced off right at 9:30. As we can look here, this was the 9:30 bounce on Friday. Went up from about 9 cents to 38 cents in a matter of minutes. Again, we saw the same thing here. The 9:30 bounce on Thursday took it up about 70%. So this is one of those pumpers that has just been doing it pretty much again and again. We've seen these pop up. Those are the two big ones that I'm keeping an eye on this morning as we go through. On bigger stocks, we're moving in this morning. BLCO, Bausch & Lomb, was having a nice move here this morning, up about 11.5%. It got some analyst upgrades, so good to see that. 2 minutes away from open here. MSTR, MicroStrategy, with a nice move up, broke all-time highs. Jeremy and I went over this on Thursday when I was a guest on his show and mentioned if it broke 199.5 to look for a explosive move up, and now you can see that's at 2.
Michael Saylor's a nutball. Michael Saylor's crazy. Michael Saylor's doesn't know what he's doing. Michael Saylor's rich.
Yeah, very.
Let's
And
be
much
honest.
richer this week than he was last week even. But we had pointed out, or I had pointed out on that one, that was when I brought up, if it broke 199, you could see an explosive move to about 225, and that's right where we're at. So I did absolutely hit that one. No, it was interesting based on that. Our buddy Matthew Tuttle, who does the watch list with Jeremy, his new 2 ETFs, 2 of the biggest pre-market movers. And I was looking at the shares. He's moving 5-6 million shares pre-market here. So that's pretty good for him. So glad to see his ETF take off there. And I think he's got a winner. I think people like MicroStrategy as a proxy for Bitcoin. We are 1 minute away from open here. 1 minute away from open. UAL up about almost a point here. Steve, you mentioned that one as it's going into earnings. I noticed that's one that's really been moving here all year. It's up about 50% year to date, 38% over 3 months, and up 23% over the last month. So that one's definitely moving in the right direction for sure.
All right, we're open. Eli Lilly, wow. I think we talked about this for quite a bit. Eli Lilly here now up 4.7 points here. Weight loss drugs are still hot, guys. That's all there is to it. I've been talking about this for a while. Novo Nordisk now up about 10 cents here. Humana is now, look at that. Humana is now up 3.35 bucks right now. GlaxoSmithKline, GSK got banged up last week. Now look it up. Biotech stocks are doing quite well, especially in the value biotech stocks. Nvidia now up 2 points here, 137 now.
I'd also say, you brought up the election and how that is definitely getting, closer and closer. Just look at what DJT stock has done over the last 2 weeks too. A little bit of a proxy of how that is going, in my personal opinion there, and you can see up around 26.15 here today.
AMD slipping a bit here, but Meta Facebook is closing in on 600 again.
Wow.
Look at that. Qualcomm 170, 169 now. Yeah, I think we're going to continue to push higher here, but I don't. Yeah, look at that Nasdaq now.
Negative here though, even with these.
It is.
The ones we
I'm
have
not
moving up.
I'm not too concerned about it today. I think people want to see a little closer numbers, but I'm going to take a trade. I'm going to take a swing here at. Look at SAVE right back to 163 here.
Yep. I did notice though, I was trying to book my data flight from Boston here, and that was one of the ones that had a nonstop here into Dayton. No longer running that route. So one of the ones to be a casualty, as we had heard about. Seeing China stocks getting smacked here. PDD down 3.5%. Nvidia up 2% here, Steve.
Yep. Boeing down about 3 points here.
Tesla rebounded a little bit, took a big one. We haven't seen you since then. What'd you think about Robotaxi Day there? We had talked about to always sell the news.
It's coming, but I don't think people are ready to do that just yet.
I think more the bigger disappointment was that they're not going to have the actual cyber cab ready for like till 2027. They're going to retrofit some Model Ys and Model 3s there to do it right now. I think that let people down more than anything else when it came to that announcement.
I am actually going to short Nvidia up here. 137.83 looks like I'm in. Yeah, there we go. 137. I'm short for 137.81. We're right there where we are now, but we've reached the top of the linear regression here. Maybe a little bit more, but I kind of like this. Let's take a little bit of profit here. Not much. I don't need much in this. I've got pretty heavy, so I think we're okay here. But yeah, 89. Come on, baby. I see maybe a little bit of selling here. Bitcoin's trying but struggling, but I like this. There we go, a little slippage there. Yeah, and ticker O is pushing here a little bit. Now turned green, but Boeing now down $4 here on the day. So
yeah. Boeing more issues. That strike is not going away. They pulled their latest offer. I didn't like to see that.
I'm still not worried about Boeing right now. I think Boeing's fine. I'm not too worried about Boeing.
Flutter was one that was moving up in the pre-market this morning, gambling the ones that they own, FanDuel for those that don't know.
And I'll probably take some profit here on Nvidia during this little slippage when we start to see it here. 137.81. There you go. 79. Just a little bit more. There you go. There's the drop that we're looking for. Buy to cover. Put some orders in here. There you go. 78. Keep going, baby. Limit order.
Oracle up about a third of the point. Planet Labs up 1.33.
Right.
Palantir, that must be a new all-time high.
Bitcoin dropping.
An all-time high.
Bitcoin dropping.
Palantir, that one continuing to push up here.
Yeah, I remember when I was talking about Palantir, everybody was like, "No way, Steve! Look at that." I mean, Palantir was definitely
32.44 since we talked about it.
Okay.
Down about 2.24 here.
Nvidia getting away from me here. I might be missing one here today.
BABA down 2% here. So most of the Chinese stocks, Baidu down 2.87, getting hit here. Berkshire Hathaway holding up pretty strong. Saw that he upped his money into Nubank there, Steve, in Brazil. That wasn't too surprising. They're about to make
LATAM. We've been talking about LATAM for how long? He's not wrong.
and
I agree with that.
they're making a big move into Mexico. We talked about with Stephen Flanagan last week.
Nvidia pushing just a little bit here.
Yeah, 138.11 I'm seeing here.
Boeing now down $4.50 here. So yeah,
Ticks down 400 here.
Bitcoin is not holding up here at all. It's still slipping.
Yeah, again, I think people took profits on the ETFs right off the bat. You know,
I don't really understand the ETF profit taking. Is that what they're going to do now? They're just going to trade the options off of the ETF. Okay,
well,
but
the
I think
institutions are, so that's what's moving it.
Yeah.
People, and then your Galaxy Digitals and all those are hedging. Mara, they're all hedging things using those options. Yep, absolutely.
And I think they're going to be blatantly unhappy with their trading revenue with it. Because I honestly, Bitcoin is still going to 100,000. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
I see here that the bond market here, 10-year now 4.104%. So, but 10-year still pushing higher. I'm looking at Nvidia. Give me that break that I need, and I'll be taking some profit and then run into the hills. But
138 again there for you, so at least moving down.
yeah,
In the right
tick is down 500 here, Howard. So there's not a lot of bullishness in this market at all.
No, a lot of those early gains getting sold off so far.
An advanced decline line. Look at that. The advanced decline line in the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange is already minus 600. So, yeah.
Dow Jones down a quarter of the point. QQQ, though, is up 0.7% here and still.
Tech is still holding up. I get it.
Apple, nice jump here, 1.53% up. So Apple, nice little bounce up here this morning.
Yeah, it's really struggling here at the 138 handle here on Nvidia. I like it at 138. I like it as a short. I don't like it as a long. I think it's had its nice run here. And as you know, I've been very bullish on Nvidia. Still am. I still think it's going to 200, but I just think it's a little bit overcooked right now.
Yep, and we've seen a lot of these when they go right up off the bat. They've been selling it off.
And we might be right. Look at that, 103.24 now on
there you go, 137.86. It's moving down for you.
Yeah, I'm about to put in an order here to buy it back here, but we're not quite there yet.
38. Seen a halt on VERB. I'm not familiar. I mean, I know what a Verb is, but I don't know what Verb the stock is. Verb Technology.
Verb Tech, yeah.
Whoa, up 103%. That is a stoppage on the way up. So they are still halted here. 16.13. That's an interesting one. Not seeing any news on it. Oh, wait, what's this? Letter to the stockholders from the chairman and CTO. Verb Technology. Which is go fund yourself.
Don't know what that is. That's a good one for me. All right, pushing forward here now. The advanced decline line for the New York Stock Exchange is minus 613. That's pretty negative to me. Get down about minus 1,000, and you'll start to see some serious selling as overall selling will be hitting the waves of selling will be hitting the market. So I don't think we're there yet.
Back up here, 64,725. So that quick sell-off seems to be getting bought up a little bit so far.
137.81. Come on, baby. Come on, Nvidia. Drop me down about another 10 cents here, 20 cents, and I'll be taking you out.
VIX is at about the 20 handle here, 20.4.
All right, I'm going to put an order in to buy that back at 137.50. Let's see a drop here and probably see it. There we go. Tick now dropping again here. Tick now. Oh God, tick down 500 now. So nothing good here in this market.
Yeah, nothing really
It's
moving
kind of
in that
quiet.
direction.
It's waiting on some news. I don't see much news coming out, so it is waiting on something. Maybe some profit taking here, I think, but Bitcoin's still slipping a bit. Nasdaq is still struggling. Okay, well there you go, 138.15.
Albemarle getting hit a little bit here. ALB.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about Albemarle. There's the lithium batteries. People need lithium no matter what they think. And there was a lot of vehicles, electric vehicles that were damaged that we need to
Oh
replace
yeah.
lithium. Yeah, so there'll be some of that too going on. But
Nasdaq's
battery
been
tech,
trying to break that 0.7% up, but it can't just seem to get above it. Every time
and
it
there's
tries, it
gold
seems to
taking
lose
off
ground.
26.55 now, 40 an ounce. So gold is still holding. That's a nice little run there on gold this morning.
Yeah, especially it was stuck at 26.25 for a while last week. It couldn't get above that mark. Tried it on 6, 7 occasions before finally breaking back through.
Let's see if we can get my little drop here in Nvidia. It's definitely trying. There are some buyers still in there, but they're really trying.
I see the Russell 1000 just went positive here, so Russell 1000 positive. Copper down about 2.5% today.
Here we go, slipping a little bit Nvidia. Come on, baby, just keep slipping. Tick is trying here right now,
Yeah,
trying to go positive, but I
Calendar
don't know that
continuing to try to move up
I don't know
here.
if it has the strength to do it. It doesn't have the strength here. We're seeing the Dixie now 103.23, so it is really holding here. If I can't get Nvidia to drop on this last run down at the bottom, I may just take.
It's back below that 138. It hasn't been able to get back up. On the 3 minute, looks pretty good for coming back towards at least that VWAP at 137.30 or
That's
so,
what
even Steve.
that's what I'm thinking. 137.50. That's why I've got my order in there. If it can't break the 138.20 ish here, then the drop will happen. But let's see where we're going at now. All right, ticker CrowdStrike here down about 85 cents. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. If it can't get the over that 138 and really hold over it, we could see a nice little. There's Nvidia. Come on, baby, sell off now.
Retail getting hit here this morning. Nordstrom's down, Kohl's down, Levi's down. A lot of the Nike down. Nike down another 1.5 almost.
Yeah, I mean, are you buying Nike shoes? I mean, I'm not seeing
No,
that.
SMCI just went negative here.
And Nvidia needs to just drop.
Snowflake having a pretty good day, up 1.27. Molson Coors having a nice day, up 2.66.
137.72, 76 now on Nvidia. Come on, give me another breakdown to the bottom. We're seeing Nasdaq trying a little bit here. We're seeing the Bitcoin coming back a bit. If we can get back above the 65,000 handle, that could be really good for the day.
Siri up 6.3% here. UAL pushing up still. ASML up 2.35.
Just a little bit more Nvidia, and I'll take my profit here. 137.50 is where my numbers are. Probably don't want to say it too loudly because everybody probably put it in there, but it is what it is. Need about 25 cents.
Seeing financials up a little bit here. Blackstone up almost a point. Morgan Stanley up 0.72. So seeing a little bit of
137.69. Come on, baby, get down there. 67. It's 14 pennies to go. 15 pennies to go. We're seeing 65,000 again. There you go, Hondo, back on Bitcoin there.
Absolutely.
And a little bit more drop there. There it is, 137.53, 55, 56. Can I get my 6 pennies, or do I need to take that money and run? I don't like it when it does that. So
61, 62. Didn't give you too
58.
much of a wick to the
56.
top. You're still looking good. 59.
Let me just
You got it. It's
modify
going to bounce off the top of that 3-minute linear regression at least, and that's going to get you to that 50, 56, 55.
preview order.
Come on, you got it. Here, oh,
53. I think.
56. Here you go.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was where it was at, but we'll see. 63 again. It's struggling, but there
it goes your way. 55. Here you go. 50. It just hit. There you go. You hit it. 48.
And that's 27 in a row, Mr. Howard. Yeah. So
nice job.
yeah.
Well, we're at 30 combined because I gave the 3 last week.
Oh, you did. You gave him from last week when I wasn't here.
I
Okay, I like it.
I kept it going. JTAI and BNZI. Actually, 4 or 5 because it was Blooms. We hit Blooms. We hit JTAI. We hit Bonsai, and we hit JTAI 2 days in a row.
Very good. I like it. I like it a lot. And then look at this right back on NVIDIA. That's what patience does.
Now, Steve. So it's a good thing you hit that spot.
Yeah, look at that Bitcoin.
381. So we're starting to see everything catch a little bit of a bid. We said QQQ couldn't break that 497 spot. Now 497.35. So we're starting at 42. We're starting to see a pretty explosive move to the upside here now. I didn't see any news that leads to this anywhere.
And Bitcoin back above 65 here, 65,230 now.
So,
right.
Like I said, Steve, don't get nervous when they readjust in that first 15 minutes, buddy.
I'm not, man.
I have to tell you every day the same way you got to warn. You got to get me whenever I get excited about the market at 9:30 exactly. I got to remind you that ETF shit every day at the same time. It just spends 15 minutes. I don't know what it is. I've got to get a better read on exactly how that reshuffle.
We're seeing oil pushing higher here a little bit, 74.56 now. Wow, 73.50 earlier this morning. Another dollar on WTI. Oil is that just tells you things aren't good when oil prices continue to push like that. So yeah.
Steve, the other one I feel like we're always just mentioning going up, up, up is Affirm. Buy now, pay later. That one's still.
How great is the world when you got to buy now, pay later? I mean, that's the world we live in, right? Yeah.
Again, it's just one. I'm not a fan of the product, but I can't argue with the performance of the stock.
Correct. Yeah.
Amazon up a little bit. I was reading, Steve, a little bit on their satellites. I'll talk to you more about that tomorrow after I finish a little bit more research. I didn't realize they were that bad. I mean, I know they do everything. I guess I should have realized it, but I didn't know that they were putting up that large amount of satellites into the low Earth orbit to do similar to what Starlink is.
Yes. Look, I just looked at Starlink the other day. I saw where Elon Musk was giving away Starlink to everybody affected by hurricanes. A free internet until the end of the year.
And the government wasn't letting them go where he needed to go to give them away. It's actually been pretty
well. He had his own now on the website, and if it sees you're from Florida, I mean, it was automatic for free. You just click the button and it's like free. Like, okay, that's a good way to get Starlink out to everybody, right? But the residential side of things, I can understand a little bit for the people that live out in the boonies. But when you talk about, marine, or you talk about people out, nowhere, that's different. They need internet access, and this is a way for them to do that. And I like that a lot. It was good. There's NVIDIA back above 138. Well done on that trade. I think that was a really good trade.
That thing perfectly.
You're seeing the VIX now dropping even more now, the lows of the day. So the dollar 103.10 now, that was pretty high right there, 103.24. Now 103 might be able to not hold this 103 handle here. Yeah, 103.09 now, 103.08, possibly going down below the 103 handle. I think that's probably true. If that's the case, I can see now why you're seeing gold pushing higher, as well as NASDAQ pushing higher, and of course crypto markets pushing higher here too. So that's good. I like this Boeing.
Broadly, I mean, I'm looking Ford, GM, Stellantis, all up pretty nicely today. So cars, again, if we look at some of these other sectors, they're moving up pretty well too. So we are.
I'm not gonna lie, I really like this Boeing down here at 147.74. I really do like it down here. I'm starting to get where I want to kind of make some positions and get big positions here.
Yeah, for me, I got to see them at least get back into the bargaining table again. You know.
By the time they get back to the bargaining table, I think the stock will already take off. I mean, if you look at it,
Yeah.
right, if you look at it
That
from the
is the worry.
perspective, pull up a daily, pull up a weekly chart on Boeing, and you'll see what I see: three lower highs there. One back in 2022 and one back in 20. So 2 years. Look at that. Those, if you a weekly chart.
I'm getting it.
Yeah, you can see that we're really hitting the. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Higher lows on the bottoms and touching the linear regression there. I really like this down here. If they can clean up their act a little bit and get the bargaining chips on the table and get back on track, I think Boeing could be really good here.
You heard it from Steve here. I'm still holding off. I still think you get downside to this 125 area, unfortunately. So I'm going to let that ride a little bit. I am a fan of Boeing. 141 would be at least there what it hit back in October of 2020 is what I'd be looking at as a support zone.
When do we get to 100,000 on Bitcoin there, Howard?
That's a great question. I don't know that we'll get. I do think that we are getting ready, if we're not already in it, our next upcycle here. As you know, I brought it up the beginning of last week. You know, I've been saying for a month or so, as people have been bitching about the price, that the demand, you know, when you have the halvening, it takes 6, 8, 10 months for that to work its way through. That happened in April, and this is now where you're going to start to see that change, where when people go to buy it, there isn't as much there. We've had half as much supply, you know, that deflationary curve there works. It's still down 300 on the tick, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the overall market here. I think that we're just too frothy for me. Just what I feel like we're just too frothy. Okay, I did it, Howard. Here. Now this is not a day trade. This is a longer trade, and I'll be adding to it. But I bought a half a position here to go long in Boeing. I think that I like this down here. Look,
What
it's
price you
giving
get
me a.
in there, Steve? I'll track this one. I'm going to put a tracker up for our calls.
Let me give you the exact, because I bought this on market order. So
Yeah.
147.38. I bought a half position here. 147.38. So this is not one for today. This is one for probably for
Long-term.
two. Yeah, I'd say longer
Or
term,
swing.
more of a
Swing.
swing trade, right? Yeah, I'm thinking mid-November here. This one.
Okay, mid-November. We'll even track that.
Yeah.
I like that call.
Dollar. There it is.
65. Bitcoin holding that 65. QQQ trying to go up. I think if QQQ gets above that 298 again, you could see it move here.
Yeah, I mean, to me, look, the tick now just went from a positive 700 to a negative 200, and just a blip. And I think, to me, that tells you everything. That people just are not. They're nervous about this market. The Dow down 73, the Nasdaq up 232. It's still a buyer's market. It's still, I'm sure a stock picker's market. There's nothing in this telling me that, oh my gosh, I can't wait to put more money into the market. I'm just not that place. And neither is Warren Buffett either. I mean, he just doesn't feel that way, right? There you go. 146.80. We're still slipping a little bit, Bowen. That's why I didn't buy a full position. I will be adding to this position over time. I'm not quite completely there yet, but I don't want to miss this move. If they come out and say, "Oh, the strike is over and the stock jumps 10 points," I'll be a very happy camper, right?
Yep,
But if it doesn't, I understand that too. But I like this. I like this position. I like this place. Three higher lows. But I need to see change in the linear regression. But I'm not too concerned about it. That's why I'm going, and I'm going based on news, and I'm going based on a swing trade. So I like Boeing here.
I like Boeing, as you know. I just think my risk reward isn't quite there yet on it.
Do you have a buy order in there in your little area to buy?
I have a wish list on it. Yeah, I have a 127 actually, though. You don't want to hear that number.
Doesn't bother me one bit. I mean, I look, if it gets down there, great. That's why I didn't buy a full position. If it gets down there,
Yeah,
great.
and
I
I
will.
think that's Steve. It's also, you also got to look. I don't have as much powder necessarily as you do, so I got to be a little bit more tight into the vest right now. I'm holding back that powder, like you've talked about. I'm listening to you. The last time I didn't do it as well as I'm trying to position myself this time. But I'm with you. I just Boeing one, as you know, I'm a big fan of Boeing in general. It was probably my best trade during COVID, um, and I'm partial. You're always partial to the ones that you have those big wins with, and that don't give you much stress. That one just sort of marched its way up. It was the same thing as the Mag 7 during that time. Apple back up 1.35% here, Steve.
Yeah, I look. The markets don't seem to have a direction yet for me. Disney 9450. I like that, by the way. If you want to talk about the average consumer, are they loving Disney World? Disney did not close, only for one day during the hurricane, and back open they were. Um, that's Disney.
I
That's
can tell
Disney.
you the I was not there because of the Jewish holidays, but the little one was at Kings Island, which is here, which is part of Six Flags and Cedar Point and all that stuff, and it was packed for their spooky Halloween stuff. Just absolutely insane, like the busiest anyone's ever seen it. So I think I'm with you. People want to go get entertained. They want to do that stuff. And a lot of the country, you were joking because I do have a sweater on today, but the weather has been beautiful up here. It's been mid 80s most of the days, so that helps with some of the stuff in this area where it can be any last Halloween it snowed. So
Hey, I'd rather it be cold than like that than a hurricane. So I don't know.
yeah,
I'll take that any day. Yeah. Another pop
MSTR back
here.
up 5.8% here with
Yeah,
Bitcoin
you're
moving
seeing
up.
Bitcoin bouncing right off of that. Wow, look at that. 65 one. There's buyers in this market for crypto right now.
And I will point out, I had been talking, as you know, even in our Slack channel with Paul and some of the other guys about it, is I was saying, we break out of this. We've been in this symmetrical triangle you can see going back into the end of July, mid-August. That's on the weekly chart. Let me pull it to the daily. It shows it a little bit even
But what do
better.
we need to break out to make people feel good that okay, I'm buying Bitcoin for long term. I'm put this thing away. What
People
is it about?
are, Steve. People are. I mean, I think you've
Okay.
got a few things in play. Is again, its price action isn't bad. It's not like it's been dropping down to bad spots. It spent most of its time in the last, again, if we go back to beginning of September when it did hit on all the bad news with everything else on the Israeli invasions on September 6th. It dropped down to 53. Since then, it's done a nice recovery. It had like you said, you have a higher swing low, swing higher, back up. It broke that out of that consolidation that it's been doing since mid-August.
Right.
So now, my thing would be it's still got to break this 66,570. If it breaks 66,570 here, then you've broken out of this consolidation, because what we've seen is it will make a one-day pump up and then fall right back into the zone, never even finishing a close a day above this trend line. So that's what we're looking
Right.
for.
And I'm hearing a lot of people complain about the fact that, oh well, I'm not buying it for right now. I'm buying it for longer term. But there's this trading going on that's just erratic. And what puts people's minds at ease when they're buying longer term and they're seeing this volatility in the crypto market?
Um, Again, it's your time horizon. Nothing's changed to me. I mean, at all. This is what you want to see. This is actually a much better cycle than what we've, again, if we look at weekly charts, if we break it down, this consolidation is not nearly as bad as this consolidation or this consolidation or this consolidation. Again,
Right.
I would call this, if you're saying you hit an all-time high of 74 and you pulled back to 50, that's much better than what we've seen in the past. When we made the first run to 70, we pulled all the way back to 17. So, again, I'm just more looking at it and saying this is an okay spot. If it spends a little bit of time in this area doing price discovery, there's nothing wrong with that. I would ask you, what is the impedance to move it up at a tremendous rate right now above what it's doing? Right now it's finding its spot. It's getting more widely held. It's moving from certain people's hands to other people's
Well,
hands.
I would say, why are the miners dumping at every turn of
Because they
the
cannot, because they're stocks, they can no longer allow their investors to be put to that risk of holding an unlimited amount and not keeping enough cash on hand for the inevitability that is the drop from 70s to 50s. So what you
Gotcha.
see now is they don't hold as much in theirs. They have to sell off. They've changed their views. Mara still holds a large amount of Bitcoin, but they do every month sell a little bit, which they weren't doing before, to pay their bills. What these companies are doing is, especially when it comes to those mining companies, you have a startup, is it's harder to raise money again and again and again, right? So they were doing bond offerings or diluting their stock and stuff like that in general to do that. That was putting more stress on the market than selling off some Bitcoin and making a profit that way.
Right.
Let's get
Right.
a little bit of a third view in here. I do see that our man Steve Flanagan's in here. Give me 1 second to get him up on the screen, and we can beat him down on what's going on with the U.S. dollar. What I'd say is if Steve could help us out and not have DXY break 103, Bitcoin would have more room to run. So that's what we got to do is beat him up. And here we go. We're bringing in our main man, Stephen Flanagan. Stephen, how you doing today?
Good morning, gents. Steve, good to see you back, making it through the hurricane.
Nothing's gonna stop me. You've known me long enough, Steve. Flans, look at this is what we do. We don't stop. We don't stop, man. And I
That's right.
appreciate that. Thank you. I'm gonna step off here, but Steve Flanagan, I think you're in good hands with Hondo.
Have a good day, Steve.
See you later. It's good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. Again, I have to, break, you don't have to break your own arm patting yourself in the back. I'm going to do it for you. You were the first person I heard say, do not trust the Chinese bureaucrats. They will pull that rug quicker than you can get your couch put out on top of it. Well, it looks like they did this weekend, huh?
Yeah, the key, Howard, with China is it's incredibly a controlled market. And I think from historical point, the Chinese authorities have learned a lot of lessons about too much and then seeing the markets overreact. Um, I think what they're looking to do is provide that extra stimulus. You saw today they came out and said, we're going to pledge even more fiscal support, which kind of creates a base underneath. But they want this to happen in a very controlled fashion. And again, foreign money doesn't just jump into China as it would do to other areas of the world. So
Right.
it's so easy to get caught up in these FOMO type trading environments. And when it turns, it's sharp. It's a one way because the liquidity isn't the same as we see in other markets.
Yeah, and you can see that across the sell-off. Most of those gains seen in BABA and some of the American depositories of it have just gotten shattered. Steve wanted me to ask you, and I sort of know the answer because you and I have been talking about it. Is this the week we break above that 103 maybe and move up to that 104 and a half you talked about? We've seen a strong move this morning.
We're right on the resistance here at 103.25. I'm going to give it, I always give a little bit of discretion to my technical analysis, and you've got to learn that over time. What do you consider discretionary? I'm going to add about 8 points. So I'm looking around a 103.33. And I honestly think if you look at the sharpness of this move, this is a market that has been all year, if not for even longer. The dollar is going to decline. The dollar is going to lose its luster. Not going to be a reserve. Well, this type of move indicates just an oversold market, and everybody's attempting to get back in. I'm looking actually for a level here based on this break of 103.33, 35. I'm looking for a move up to around the 104 and a half level. I
Yeah,
think
I have it right
105.
here on the chart. What you've been telling me, that's what I've been looking at also, and it seems
Yep.
to be holding up exactly like you're saying. You can see this is 3 straight days of bouncing off of that resistance you've brought up.
Yeah, and it's not so much a dollar story as it is you've got ECB, which is our big calendar event for this week
Yeah.
on October 17th, expecting a 0.25% cut to 3.4, further aggravating that interest rate differential between the US and Europe. And with their inflation under 2%, I mean, there's no reason in the world that they cannot lower rates,
Right.
but it's going to create a dollar situation here, especially as you move a little bit, beyond the European venue. You've got Bank of England with the employment index on Tuesday, and that's unemployment's expected at 4.1%. You've got CPI on Wednesday, expecting plus zero point 0.2, which will bring 1.9 year to year, and they're under the 2%.
Right.
And then you've got PPI, which is in negative territory. So you've suddenly got a situation of interest rates, as we talked last week, differentials beginning to exacerbate the dollar move here.
Now, will what's going on in France affect that at all? I did see Fitch's downgraded France's outlook with their GDP to debt ratio going over 100%. Steve pointed out that when you compare that to some other countries that you might think have good ones like Japan, they don't either.
Well, and now if they go over that 100% threshold, smack on the back of the hand from the Maastricht Treaty that in 1999 unified the European Union here
Yeah, I
and the
saw they have
euro.
to get to 3% limit by 2029. Now, what happens if they don't? Are they gonna kick them out, or I mean, what happens?
Well, we've seen this in a number of countries, and it honestly depends upon your political prestige within the European bloc there. If it's Germany, France, they kind of like turn a blind eye and let them go. But if it's Italy, they're going after them
Or
hard.
Greece,
So,
right?
yeah, exactly. So, I don't think it's a big deal. Obviously, from our perspective, a fiscal stimulus is probably what Europe needs. They're growing. They have anemic growth. If you're
Yeah.
calling zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.4 growth, I mean that's just not sustainable, and it's been that way for the last 2 years or more.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, they don't make much. You don't hear them as the headlines. I mean, that's why it'll be interesting to see if London can get itself back into the financial headquarters of Europe or something, and what is going to be the next stimulus that moves them because tech wise, you don't really think of them in that realm. It gets hard. They don't have a lot of commodities. They usually are commodity importers, not exporters. I have to ask you a question with the France issue. Would this, how will this affect the African nations? While France isn't on the franc anymore, so to speak, they are in a lot of the countries that used to be French republics.
Their currencies, some of them are tied to the euro, obviously, but it's not a good thing when one of the major engines of European growth begins to stumble and begins to cross a lot of the red lines within the Maastricht Treaty. We kind of touched on this about ECB not being the quote unquote lender of last resort and the structural issues within the European system. You did mention European companies. We have, many very strong and large European companies throughout the world in a lot of significant, but they need growth. So how it does affect the African countries? I mean, there's going to be a knock-on effect to anything that if Europe does not get some growth, they've got to be an engine of growth within that hemisphere. So yeah, it's going to have some sort of effect in there.
Yeah, you would think that would be part of the play there as an issue for that. But again, part of that is that their currencies have been held down for so long so that we could get their commodities much cheaper. Especially in Europe. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Europe shipping companies come to mind to me as some of the biggest shipping companies in the world, Maersk
Yep.
and some of those companies there, for sure.
You
It's
know
just
how it those currencies in Africa, those are not currencies. It's kind of, if I enter into your realm,
yeah,
into the crypto space, it's some of those crypto pairs that, if you want to go buying it, you bet it's at your risk
Yeah,
because
yeah, I can't imagine there's a stable
right.
exchange rate for some of those. I just knew for me, and that's why I bring it up is that one of the biggest reasons we've seen a lot of adoption of cryptocurrency within Africa has quite
Yep.
honestly been because they don't control their own currency. It's one of the reasons why did El Salvador, is probably the strongest economy right now in Central America, right? And part of that has been its move to Bitcoin because they were so reliant on the US dollar as its reserve currency. And they didn't
Right.
get the results of a stimulus. They weren't getting stimmy checks down there as we were up here and all that. So they got hurt a lot more. And the same way we know that for centuries, a lot of the Central African republics had been sort of at the realm of the Europeans for their peg of their currencies. So they've adopted Bitcoin and crypto as an answer because number one, we get so US centric. You don't because you've been in this world of currencies, but we're so used to a bank on every corner. You
Yeah.
go to a lot of countries that isn't the case. I spent a few months in Peru when I changed careers from the liquor industry into sort of this industry, and yeah, you go down into the jungles in Peru in the mountains. There isn't a lot of banks to go to.
That's right. And of course, that move into the crypto space in some of the African centers, as you're mentioning, this is underscores the reason why Europe has to start getting to be an engine of growth. Otherwise, what people are going to begin to do is they're going to start looking to other places. And I would then remind the audience that towards the end of this month in October, we have the BRIC nations meeting within Moscow. And this is something that you've got to keep an eye because many of the BRIC nations are advocating a move away from the dollar, and we know that a number of the oil companies, the Saudis, have actually take payment in oil
Yep.
outside of the dollar. So, do the BRIC nations begin to suddenly advocate an alternative currency? Many of these central banks within a number of the areas of the world have been heavy buyers of gold. There could be some sort of play here. So I just put it on the radar
Yeah,
as
no,
don't
that, that
just
I,
wake
that's a
up.
great call,
Yep,
and very important. China just announced they're adding to their metals collection silver for the first time.
yep.
So, and
You,
a lot
you
of
don't.
these things, like you said, that people don't put those correlations. So it's great of you to bring that up. That correlation is why is Russia buying so much gold and precious metals? Why is China doing that? Could very well be because they want to reestablish some form of the gold standard or something else over there that they're going to go to, or the way that they're going to exchange rates because they don't want to use the U.S. dollar.
Well, we're dealing now into some theories and theoretical type environments, but certainly one of my favorites. As I look forward, with a 43-year experience plus now in currencies, you look at the situation and what is the dollar, what is the euro. These are currency. These are things that are backed by debt. And, there is some sort of, we've been free floating currency since 1971. It's probably the longest that currency markets have had an unabated, you know, disaster.
Right.
So you could make a case that, you're beginning to get to a point where if debt is what's backing an alternative form. So that's why I bring up the BRICS.
Sure.
I don't expect anything at all to happen. There's too many nations. There's too many people that have to be involved in it. That is always the stumbling block. Just look at United Nations.
Yep.
Um,
Too many
but
chefs in that kitchen.
that's right. But it is something to have on and keep an eyeball out. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You seen anything? The yen, seems to be holding up here close to that 150 mark.
Yeah, we have, as we said, ECB is next up. Then the UK is going to come in around November 7th. I think that the end of the month is Bank of Japan, but I would expect nothing because they've kind of given us enough warnings that they're going to wait till the end of the year to have more data. Because if you look at the head of the BOJ, Ueda-san, this is a man who is very data centric,
Absolutely.
and for that matter, so is the new prime minister.
Yep.
So I would look at probably January for Bank of Japan to look to raise rates. But between now and then, if the U.S. maybe is only going to go a 0.25% now, certainly half seems off the table. And a number of Fed officials may be talking that why don't we wait a meeting here? You're going to have the dollar at 5% and Japan at 0.25. And that certainly keeps the interest rate differential alive. And you're seeing the dollar yen beginning to reflect that back to the 150 level. I would say 155 is pretty toppish, and at that point I would be looking to reverse. But the dollar right now is kind of the de facto play. The dollar index chart indicates that everybody is suddenly rushing to try to get back into the trade, and the yen is a component of that.
Yep, makes sense for that. And like you said, I spoke with Steve a little bit earlier about this. It's funny how we know that Michelle Bowman voted against the half point and wanted a quarter point, and she seemed to be the only one to go out on a limb. And when you read the minutes, there was a little bit more desertion, but not a lot. Now all of a sudden, a couple of hot readings though, and every Fed speak that I've seen in the last couple of days. Well, maybe we got to pause. Maybe this. Are you starting to get nervous that these guys are getting wishy-washy real quick? Because I start to. I thought they really had everybody was in that boat. Seems like that boat's catching water.
Over the last year, I've been very critical of the Fed in their, higher for longer. The mantra that they try to give you forward guidance, but they've been way off the mark because the models that they use are not models that are that I feel are very symbolic of today's market, which things change rapidly. As we mentioned, just look at the 1 minute bar chart after an economic release.
Yeah.
So they're looking at, historical data into their models that, quite honestly, since 2020, COVID has thrown everything out. And all the models need to be reflective of today's type of market. So I get worried that the Fed is made up of a lot of the scholastic academics. There's very few, and of course, Powell has market experience, but there's very few with market experience. So quickly, they're going to jump and say, I told you so. We shouldn't have gone at a 0.5%. And yes, I worry about that sort of backlash now because of a one number that came out. I do think the Fed is on a path because inflation is lower and there still is a concern in the labor market, and they've got to address that because of the politics involved underneath of their side of the market.
Sure.
They've got to make sure that this um, easing of rates continues, especially given that it's happening all around the world.
Right. It isn't just. It's not just here. We are seeing that everywhere. J.P. Morgan, yeah, we talked about it going into earnings. They had good earnings. It has been reflected in their price, so they did, get there. I took more away, like we had talked about Jamie Dimon and what would he say. He's holding cash on the sidelines right now. He's following Warren Buffett. I mentioned to Steve, I'm feeling that I should be doing the same thing because those guys don't tend to make the same mistake.
Well, they speak from a historical point of view, and I'm 1 month older than he is, so I I would also look at the. It's an election year, and it's October, and the two of those are a yellow flag of caution. Now, cash on the sidelines is clearly caution. And with the way today's markets move, as we've just talked, the rapidity at which these prices can adjust, I think that that's simply the yellow flag of caution in this marketplace right now. And I watch currencies very carefully. As you know, my theme: money moves
Moves
first.
first.
Watch the currency markets because the currency markets are going to give you the leading edge of what is going to begin to happen throughout the financial markets.
You heard it here. We're gonna take off on that note. That's what matters. That's why we bring you these every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As Steven's able to tell us where the money is moving, and as he said, money moves first. We've seen it in the market. Only thing I'd point out, Steve, my Bitcoin's catching a bid here today nicely, back above 65, and it broke out of its consolidation. So we'll see what happens there. Steve was drailing me all day. Why is it not at 100 yet? I told him, let's just take a deep breath, relax. It's doing its thing. It's doing it well. Man, people
Yep.
get really impatient. I could see, I could see what the goal people had to put up with for years, huh?
And still putting up with.
Thank you so much for all your insight today, Stephen, and we'll see you again on Wednesday.